Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be doing my mid-tier list for 11.4. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. Come by, check out the stream every night, starting around midnight Eastern Standard Time. Usually goes till 3 or 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Very friendly, chill community. We'd love to have you. And then we have tons of tier lists and guides for every patch, so be sure to check that out. And then we're constantly adding more individual champion guides, topical guides like how to one trick, how to macro better, how to micro better, does luck exist in League, how to avoid toxicity, what is dodging, when should you dodge, and tons of other topics. So be sure to check all that out. And don't forget, just 1 or 2 clicks, like, subscribe. It's free, it's easy, helps out a ton on the channel. And let's go ahead and get in here. And I will say as well, if you don't know, on YouTube, I do save all of the streams. You can always view them same day. You don't have to wait for it. So if you can't watch it live, you can always go back and watch the replay of the stream. And I'm going to try to put some timestamps in there too, so you can see if I play your favorite champion that night. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. So there are a couple of things in the patch notes that I think might shake up the meta a little bit for mid lane. And I do have every other role except for top lane done as of the making of this video. So be sure to check all those roles out if you want to know sort of what's going on there. Kind of as we flip through, I don't think a ton of this is going to pertain to mid. Katarina is going to be a little bit better with on-hit builds, primarily with Kraken and Blade of the Ruined King. I still think those are going to be sub-optimal choices. Win rate-wise, they weren't really that great on the last patch. And these changes are nice. I think that the main thing it's going to help out is Nashor's, because Nashor's is already really good with her because her ult, the amount of daggers you throw scales based on your attack speed, and they're increasing that. And then the damage is going to increase at level 11 and level 16 even more. So that's already the primary best item. I believe, yeah, is Lichbane. So either Nashor's or Lichbane, either one of them. This is 11.4, so this is after the changes. So as you can see, there's only 1 day of data, but more and more people are trying out the Blade of the Ruined King. It's just a trap. It's a really bad item. Just do not get that item. It is bad on her. So is Kraken, so don't fall for the trap. Either go for Nashor's, Protobelt, or Lichbane, I think are the 2 best options that people typically go for. But anyways, it will make those options stronger. Let's see, other mid laners. I don't think there's a ton as far as champions. Veigar's getting a little bit of a buff. I don't think this is his major problem. He's just really niche against melee, immobile champions, and there's just not a ton of those that are in the meta right now. But you might be able to pick him into maybe Galio or something, or Diana. Be pretty decent against Echo. So he has some okay matchups in some places, but this will allow you to spam your Q more often without running out of mana early, which is good. And then the Primordial Blast will give you more ults later on in the game. So, okay, it might move him a little bit, but probably not a ton. Moonstone Renewer, this is going to hurt Seraphine in the middle. If you run Lulu or Karma, it would matter, but those are kind of off meta. But Seraphine is pretty meta in the middle with Moonstone Renewer, but she can also go for some other options. I think primarily Ludens is the other one that people get on her. Now, her win rate dropped pretty dramatically in mid lane, although this is a very small sample size. It's only 1,000 games, so I don't think it's going to end up being that low. But even out of this sample size, it looks like Moonstone's still the best. So, that nerf to Moonstones I talked about in the support video is probably in the mid game, maybe 10%, but over the course of an entire game, it's probably going to be around 6 or 7% nerf to the healing, but still going to be really strong. So instead of healing for 5,000 a game, you'll heal for 4,500, which I think is okay. Now these will change. So Morellonomicon is now 97% efficient or 96%. They're basically giving it 10 free extra AP. I mean, very good on champions that don't require mana, that don't have mana problems, that don't need to get a Ludens or something like that. I guess a lot of secondary items don't really have mana on them, but be very, very good if you need Grievous Wounds, especially if they have a ton of healing on their team. Then getting that 60% is not going to cost you as much opportunity cost anymore, so you don't have to be afraid to complete the Morellonomicon just because you feel like you're paying too much. It's actually a really good item now. There are a couple of interesting choices here with mage items. So Cosmic Drive, I think this is going to be the big one that some people might sleep on out there. Some analysts kind of talk about it, but this is actually becoming very cost efficient. So you're going to get 40 ability haste out of it. Yeah, you're going to get, it's 90% gold efficient, but that doesn't include the 40 ability haste. So if you tack that on there, or the extra 20 ability haste, that's going to be, well, like 540 gold, I think. So yeah, that's going to put you over 3,000. And I think when I did my calculations before on this, it was about 3,600 gold if you include like 20 movement speed and 20 ability haste in it. Maybe not quite that much, but it was something close to that. So I think it's going to be between like 110 and 120% efficient. So it's going to be a very efficient item for a secondary item. It is still expensive, but it does have very nice components as well. You get to just build a bunch of amp tomes and ruby crystals into kindle gems and fiendish codexes. So you're not waiting around on needlessly large rods, and you're not getting components that you just may not really need. So it has really smooth timing for a second or a third item. So I think that this could be very good on champions that want a lot of ability haste and want movement, because there aren't a lot of mage items that have both of those in large quantities. Most of the time your choice is going to be, you're going to get your mythic, and then it's going to either be a utility item like a Zanya's or a Banshee's, or you're going to just go right up to the big ticket item like Death Cap. And so I think this is going to add another decent item in there. You can also go for Demonic Embrace, which I think is going to be the main competitor here, which is also about 100% efficient, but and that has a dot over time, so it's going to put out more damage than this one on the item itself, but and it's going to have a little bit more health, and then you get the 10 armor and the 10 magic resist, but it does not have ability haste on it, and it does not have movement speed on it. So once again, it's like, do you want maybe a little bit more damage and more resistances, or do you want the ability haste? So champions that have really long cooldowns that are highly impactful, so especially the global champs immediately come to mind, the Galio and the TF specifically, I think are really going to love this. You know, Galio loves to get in close. We'll talk about him. He's at the very top of the tier list, actually. This helps him get in range for his taunt, and it's going to allow him to make more plays. And his W's on a pretty long cooldown, too. They nerfed the cooldown on that a while back, his AoE taunt. So he just naturally has long cooldowns outside of his ult as well, which would be really good. And then Twisted Fate's the other one. Very long cooldown on the ult, and then really high impact cooldown with the gold card, the 2-second point-click stun. So having that on a lower cooldown is good. And of course, he really likes the movement speed, so he can kite and run people down as well. So I think both of those are going to be extremely good with it. And like Shyvana might really like this to run through the jungle faster. Even something like Echo might like this for some of the cooldowns, or Fizz, just so they can rotate down the river and get to lanes faster, and they have more like uptime on their ults. So we'll see. I mean, some of those champs, especially the melee champs, the Echo and the Fizz, they're going to really like Zanya's. So I don't know if this is going to outcompete Zanya's. But for the ranged champions, or the ones that really need to get in close, that have a hard time gap closing, this might be a pretty good option. Even on someone like Rakan in the support role, it could be decent. So I think it'll see some play. But yeah, definitely keep an eye out on Twisted Fate and Galio. And then Everfrost is an interesting choice. It's like 110, 120% efficient now after these buffs. So there might be a couple of champs that would like this. I was kind of wondering, like, what is Zoe? Zoe usually gets, what, Ludens or something? So I'm kind of wondering, Ahri is someone who might like it just because she already, like, she gets in close, she hits her charm, and then you can root and stun them. Like, Veigar might like it. I think it has 800 range. So you can chain together CC. I think that might be a little too close for Twisted Fate's comfort, but I think Zoe usually gets, what, like Ludens? The thing with Ludens is it does give you movement speed to kite better, which is very relevant, and it does help you wave clear, and so that's why a lot of people just prefer Ludens. And it does add in some extra damage for your poke. It's only a 20-second cooldown on Everfrost, and just nobody ever gets it. I'm just wondering, like, could you go in? Yeah, actually, people are trying it out. It has a high win rate now. There's not many people that are playing it. But I'm just thinking, like, if you go up close to them, you can try for an Everfrost with your ult. If you hit the Everfrost, and that's a free bubble hit on them, if you're able to land that. And then, of course, your bubble hit can go into your Q. So it's just like one more shot you can take. Basically like an extra bubble that you can take with people. That's going to, I believe, move a little bit faster. I think it can hit multiple people in team fights, which is good. And and just some extra proc damage. So I think that could be really nice on some of these champs that maybe have, like, that can chain CC together, or that have really, like, important skill shots they need to be able to hit. So yeah, I mean, it's a 1.5 second root that also has the same proc damage as Luden's, basically, at least on single target. And it's only a 20-second cooldown, so you can keep firing on that, you know? Luden's, I guess, has a 10-second cooldown, so that's even faster. But I don't know. It's probably going to be Luden's on most people, but I think there will be somebody where that comes up. And then jungle changes. People are saying there's going to be a lot more ganks from junglers, but we'll just see how it goes from there. I don't think it'll impact the top end, at least, of the supports, or the mid laners. Okay, so let's talk about mid. I think Galio is going to be the best right now for a few reasons. He just brings so much utility to the table for the support role. So, of course, he has his ultimate, which we mentioned before, and I think Cosmic Drive will be strong. I don't know if people are getting that yet or trying it out. Looks like not a lot of people are trying it out yet. But I think that could be really high impact. Now, people have been also testing out Shorelias on Galio, and the main thought process here, I believe, is that you are sacrificing some AP ratios, which is a big deal, but you're getting a little bit more ability haste, you're getting some more mana regen, which is nice. He can run into mana problems if you're trying to wave clear with him, but it also helps your entire team run in whenever you land that taunt on somebody, and the speed lasts a lot longer. It's 4 seconds of 60% decaying speed, rather than 1.5 seconds of 30% speed. Now, this is up more often, so that is something to consider. And it does have 40 more ability power, so that's definitely relevant, and 150 more health. But Mandate is also 700 gold cheaper, so that can let you get to your second item faster. So if you were to go something like Shorelia's into, some people are trying it out, Cosmic Drive, look at that 70% win rate. Now, it's only 70 people that played it, but I'm telling you, I think this could be sleeper, really strong on him. That would effectively give you 60 ability haste, which is going to be very, very nice. So, you know, he's got AoE CC, he has good wave clear with his Q, he has even more CC with his Justice Punch, with his E, and then of course he has that ultimate, which is a fantastic wombo combo with a lot of different supports and junglers out there. So, really good team fighter, great wave clear, difficult to assassinate because he has really high base stats and he's got that magic shield. So he's just kind of everything. The only main drawback is he has a hard time, like, making plays by himself, so he just can't go in and 1v1 as easily and kill people. Now, if you have that movement speed up on Shorelia's, especially against some squishy targets, you might be able to do it. Or if you just, like, flash taunt and then Justice Punch, like, that can be a pretty good way to tag team somebody with your jungler. So he's got the tools, but I just think he's just almost always going to be effective. Like, there are very few situations where Galio is irrelevant. So even if you fall behind, you're still able to make those plays. You still have the CC, and if you get really far ahead, you can snowball your advantage in those side lanes. So I think it's really hard to be bad on Galio if you actually practice him a lot. And he's just always going to be useful, regardless of the matchup or if you fall behind. So that's why I have him as number one. I just think he works so well with a lot of the items out there. And then, wow, Kassadin's up that high. I'll have to investigate. I didn't have the 11.4 data when I recorded this, but that is very interesting that Kassadin is has that high of a win rate, but it falls off. So it's just the data's going to look a little weird when there's, like, pretty low sample sizes, like not even 10,000 games on a lot of these champs. But anyways, the next one that I think is going to be strong is Anivia, and Big Bird, still going to be flying in, still strong, like has some of the best wave clear in the game. Leandri's works exceptionally well with her. I don't think she's going to want Cosmic Drive. The extra movement speed's obviously pretty good. If she can get it, it does have a high win rate. But once again, a low sample size, so it's difficult to tell. A lot of times your second item is going to be Archangel's Staff because you really do need that extra mana. Even if you go for the Ludens or the Leandri, she's still going to be a huge mana hog. So getting Archangels is good. And then after that, it depends. I think sometimes people get Zhonya's a little too much. It is nice. I do think you can keep your Storm going while you Zhonya's. I'm not 100% about that. But that can be pretty good in some tough matchups, and Morello can be good as well. So There are a lot of different options for her, but she just controls zones really well. And I think so much of the meta right now is how well you can control areas around Dragon and Baron. Just that Dragon stacking, getting Rift, getting Baron is just so huge right now. And the fact that she has that wall where she can block off choke points and completely turn fights around. And then, of course, she has her ultimate, which you just basically can't walk through those narrow corridors when she's around, spamming that ultimate. And then the Q with the AoE stun potential. You just cannot fight her near the ramps, in the jungle, just in any of those closed off spaces. She's just a complete nightmare to try to get through, especially for some of these melee champions. And there's a lot of them, like the Udyrs, the Ramesses, Skarners. You know, all of that stuff running around is going to have a really hard time getting through her, especially when you can't get good flank positioning because she's set up shop in the river. So I think she fits really well with the meta right now. She does not roam super well, so that's always been a critique of her. You can take teleport to try to get around that, but you can also just like hard push your wave and just get ahead on CS if they choose to roam. If you're communicating really well with your team, hopefully they won't die to roams. I know that's kind of a meme. But either way, tons of damage, great scaling, excellent against some of these tanks just by gumming them up, making it difficult for them to run around, and also just putting out like really big damage and just stun locking these tanks. You know, the Leandries has the percentage burn. You can go for Demonic Embrace if you want. So I just think that she fits in really, really well with a lot of what's going on in the meta out there right now. And she's had a really high win rate on top of that. Fizz is the other one, and he's my assassin of choice for the simple matter that I feel like there is less interaction with him than a lot of other assassins that are out there right now. So, whenever he jumps up on that trident, he can get around your skill shots, he can outplay your stuff, but it's really hard to peel off of him if he's trying to go onto you. So Banshee's Veil has become more popular. That's a good second item choice into Assassins, and that is really rough on Fizz because he doesn't have a way to pop that. But a lot of people aren't building it second, even though it's a super powerful item right now, so it's just kind of iffy. If they get Banshee's Veil, you're going to have a tough day because you don't have poke to get rid of it, but you can still roam to side lanes and make plays off of that. So I just like it that he's AP. He's difficult to interact with. He has lots of outplay potential. He's safe during the laning phase. He does a ton of damage if he's able to hit his sharks. And he still has pretty cheap itemization, right? Where he can still go, Proto Belt into Zhonya's or Lich Bane and really start taking off. So I don't think Cosmic, once again, would be a thing on him. It does have a high win rate with a low play rate. But probably Lich Bane and Zhonya's. Zhonya's is particularly good on him because he has fairly low cooldowns on his E and his Q. So if he can just buy that extra couple of seconds on Zhonya's, sometimes that gives him that little bit of additional mobility in order to escape after he makes the play. So I think Zhonya's is pretty nice on him. Versus like Anivia, it's a luxury that sometimes you just don't need if you have proper positioning, just because you have so many ways to control the movements in the fight. Anyways, okay, so Fizz really good. And then I think TF deserves a spot up here, and he's been getting played a little bit more in Pro, and I just think he's going to be a fantastic user of Cosmic Drive, and I think he's going to fit in pretty well with the meta right now also. Now, his win rate has not been as strong in solo queue, but I think a lot of people just don't really leverage his utility that much. But the changes to Rocket Belt did hurt him quite a bit because he was just rocket belting in and then just like one-shotting people. But like I said, I think that the Cosmic is actually going to be pretty good. As you can see, his win rate actually goes up quite a bit over time. He starts to really start hitting hard. And it looks like some people are trying out the Everfrost. That is an interesting combination with the gold card. You can get close. And it does have a decent amount of health and mana on it. Remember, he used to be a big fan of Rod of the Ages, so this is almost like a little mini Rod of the Ages. It's more expensive, but it is becoming pretty cost effective, so that might be a reasonable mythic. People have been trying out the Shorelias. Looks like it's not as good on him as it is on Galio. Not 100% sure like why that is. Maybe Galio maybe doesn't need the AP as much from big ticket mythics just because his taunt and his utility is so strong versus maybe Twisted Fate really wants more of that one-shot potential. But yeah, this might be a pretty decent, looks like a pretty good option on him. Although, reasonable sample size. And then I'd probably just go Ionians. You can go Sork Boots, but I think just more teleports are better. And then people are trying out Cosmic a little bit more on him, but not a ton. But I'm telling you, this thing on someone like TF and Galio, especially TF, like TF can use his ult proactively anywhere, anytime. Galio has to have a little bit of setup. I think it's still really good on him, but you have to have someone else start a fight somewhere versus TF can just go there, right? So TF, just a classic, fantastic solo queue warrior champion. Excellent macro. The cooldown on the gold card is also going to be huge in team fights. If you can just get off 1 or 2 more gold cards, that's such a big deal with the extra cooldown reduction and just allowing you to kite a little bit more with Cosmic. So you are losing some of the damage off of Lichbane, so that is a consideration. But nevertheless, he's pretty good. I think he can have a tough matchup into some assassins, depending on what the situation is. So like Fizz, for example, can jump his gold card, which is really bad. I think Zed can ult and get out of his gold card. So there are several champs that can play around that. And against like some of these tanky champs that might get Mercury Treads and other forms of tenacity, they can just kind of just like Udyr, they can just ignore your gold card and just run through you pretty much. That can be problematic, but nevertheless, I still think he brings a ton to the table and just puts so much macro pressure on the side lanes. If they're not paying attention to you, you can completely take over by yourself. But even if they are paying attention to you, you're just going to force them to play more defensively, and they're just not going to be able to make those plays they might normally be able to make. So I think TF is going to be in a really good spot, even though his win rate's not fantastic, if you just use his ultimate properly. Okay, and then moving down into Tier 2, I have Zoe near the top of this list. She's been played a lot in Pro lately, and she is really good. She's difficult to play correctly, but I think she's just kind of one of the queens of poke out there right now, and really just assassination as well. They did hit her a little bit a few patches ago in terms of I don't think she can get redemption anymore, and sometimes she gets some more worthless actives and things like that, or just stuff that's not as good. So they did nerf her W a while ago. But they also, last patch, gave her a pretty big buff to Horizon Focus, which is really nice on her with her CC. I think that, that could actually pair really well together with Everfrost if you put it with Horizon Focus. Because then, once again, even if you don't hit your bubble, if you do get them frozen off of Horizon Focus, then you can still land your Q, and it would do that extra 10% damage, which is pretty big. So you could just like throw your Q back, R into them, hit them with your Everfrost, and then hit them with the Q for the extra 10% damage. To me, that seems like that would be really good. It's got mana on it, it's got cooldown reduction, it's got health on it. So again, you're not going to have the movement speed off of Ludens, you're not going to have the wave clear, which does matter, but I still feel like, especially if you're going to get Horizon Focus, and yeah, I think I mentioned this earlier, but that win rate there is looking pretty good. But especially if you're going to get Horizon Focus, right? If you want someone to be CC'd, then, that's going to be really good for you. So that's an interesting combination of items. You can get Zhonya's, but you're probably going to die if you Zhonya's. You don't have a lot of escapes, even if you wake up. Like, maybe you can wake up and, R one last time and win the fight, but probably a little overrated. But yeah, just like respectable wave clear, lots of playmaking potential with her, really good damage, really good long range poke and assassination. So I think she's fantastic if you're good on her, but she is difficult to play. And as I say a lot of times with these tier lists, especially with mid, there's a lot of stuff. If you're very good on the champion, you can make those champions work, especially stuff in S tier and A tier. I think that, all of them can definitely be viable. I think that mid is still the most diverse role in terms of different styles of champs and different specialties, being viable in different situations. Vladimir is the other one that I'm going to put up here, and I know he's going to have a bit of a lower win rate, but he did get a buff last patch in terms of his ultimate, which I think is really nice. I think some of the meta items are lining up pretty good with him. I do think he would be a really good user of Cosmic Drive again. because he likes health and he likes AP. Both of those, he gains extra value out of his passive with those. The CDR is huge also, not only because he has a high impact ult, but because so much of his power is tied into how many Qs he can get off in fights, because that heals him and that does a ton of damage. So he really, really likes CDR, and that means you could have more pools as well, potentially. You might even, you're probably still going to only get off one in a fight, but just more Qs, more Es, more Rs. Just very powerful. So I think that could be a decent option. Currently, he goes for... okay, people are actually getting that. So that has become, you know, one of the champs where people recognize, hey, that's a damn good item. We're going to get that on him. Because your previous build, a lot of times people's second would just go straight for death cap, because a lot of the other items kind of suck on him. You know, like Zhonya's is a trap item, just like I say on a lot of champions, with the exception of the melee champs with low cooldowns and high mobility. Zhonya's is a trap, right? Most people don't use it properly. You're going to die anyways most of the time. And as you can see with the win rate here, there's an 11% difference in win rate from Cosmic to Zhonya's. Now, once again, low sample sizes, but you'll see that all the time on so many champions where Zhonya's just has a significantly lower win rate than a bigger ticket item. But the problem with Rabadon's, first of all, it's very expensive. It's 3,800 gold, so you're going to have this huge dip in your power level after your first item, which sucks. But then also just the modularity of it just sucks. Like, the components are bad, right? So you have to get 2 needlessly large rods, which are 1,250 each. So if you aren't, like, just killing 3 people, you know, before every back, you're going to have really weird backs where you have, like, 1,000 gold and you're trying to fight for Dragon. You're preparing for it, and then you're like, well, do I just buy something really quickly, or do I save up for needlessly large rod and slow down my build? It's just horrible. Like, it feels so bad to buy Death Cap unless you're just super fed. But now with Cosmic Drive, it has so much more friendly components, and he loves all of it. You get the Kindle Gem, you get the Fiendish Codex, you get the Amp Tome. So the back timings are so much better. You're so much more efficient with your gold, and the final product is fantastic on him. So I think this is definitely a match made in heaven for Vladimir, just because the alternatives are so bad. Right, like with Galio and TF, like there are good alternatives, right? Like Galio can get, you know, something like a Zhonya's or even like a Banshee's, and that could be really good on him. And then TF's got the Lichbane option second. So they have good alternative options. I still think Cosmic's good on them, but they have other choices, right? Versus Vlad really doesn't. Like, he needed an item like this desperately to be viable, to be sort of that bridge as second item moving into something like a Death Cap or a Void Staff or something like that next. And as you can see, Demonic Embrace is pretty bad as well. Like, it's not horrible, but it seems like he's a dot style champion, but he's really more of a burst style champion. You need to kill them, like, so I don't know. Demonic just hasn't really taken off in the same way that the old school Leontries did with Vladimir, so... Anyways, I think this is going to be fantastic. And so, yeah, I think that item is really good on him, but also just his place in the meta. He can sustain through poke, and he's difficult to burst out, so a lot of these other assassins are going to have a hard time killing him. And he's very good at, like, these 5v5 team fights and just healing his way through a lot of the other nonsense. Now, yes, there are a lot of grievous wounds out there. People can get the 60%, and they will, and that does kind of suck for Vlad, so that's partially why his win rate has been down a lot. But he still does a ton of damage over time. He has great backline access where he can just use his pool and, you know, run in and maybe blow up the AD carry or someone else on the backline. So I think there are definitely some potentially really good matchups for him. He's also a pretty good Morello's user if you want, because once again, he just wants that raw AP and the health. He gets good scaling out of that. Although I will say, as like a third item, it looks like there are better options out there, but it is on the tail if he wants it. So good mage overtime. I like it. He does lack CC, which kind of sucks, but he is safe in the laning phase, and he does bring a lot of team fight damage to the mid lane, so I think that that's definitely worth noting. Malzahar is another one of my favorites. You don't see him very high on a lot of tier lists, but he's just Mr. Trusty, man. I mean, it's kind of like what I was saying with Galio. Like, it's just really hard to mess this guy up. Even if you fall behind early, you're just always going to be useful. You've got your point click ultimate, which is suppression, so they have to get Quicksilver Sash. They cannot cleanse out of it. They can't use Mikhail's out of it or anything else. Mercury Treads doesn't affect it. Tenacity doesn't work. You know, it has to be Quicksilver Sash if you want to get out of this. So really good in pick comps, really good at wave clear, so you can use your W plus your E just to push people in, roam to side lanes. I don't think he's going to like the new Cosmic. It's got a high win rate. As second item, though, low sample size, but it's possible. I mean, the CDR is nice. That does allow you to make more plays with your ult, which is good. But Demonic is actually pretty good on him because when your pets are running around, they are going to be reapplying this a lot in fights. And Rylai's is surprisingly pretty good as well because when you get Rylai's second, it gives your pet a slow. So you can do stuff like if you're running away from kind of a tough situation or you're trying to kite, you can drop your pets and they'll just automatically start attacking the Udyr or whatever that's running at you and give you more time to kite away. And every time they attack, they're going to be reapplying Liandry's. So just that kiting and Liandry's, this constant spam, is really what makes Malzahar pretty good, in addition to his ultimate. So just a really nice mid-range control mage. He also has that bubble, which is very good against stuff like Bard ult, Leona ult. Just a lot of these other really annoying engage things that other mages might be vulnerable to. He has a little bit of natural resilience with his passive. So not the highest DPS in the game overall, but the kind of utility and lockdown that he provides is going to be very good, especially if you have one of those early game, you know, hardcore gank junglers. As soon as you get to level 6, it's basically guaranteed kill. You just flash ult him, and then Udyr runs up on him, or Rammus, or whatever, and you just chain CC and kill him. So, anyways, I think he's going to be a pretty solid pick. Seraphine's another one. You know, we looked at her a second ago. Moonstone did get nerfed a little bit, so that is worth considering. Her win rate has come down so far. Remember, early in the patch, not a lot of data out yet. But I still think she's pretty good. She brings a lot of that utility. If you don't have an enchanter... Hi, Rory. What's going on? What are you doing? Oh, Big Bo. That is fun. Okay, let Daddy finish this video, and then we can play, okay? Yeah, what are you doing? What are you doing? You want to, yeah, why don't you play with it on the couch for a little bit? So if you don't have an enchanter in the bot lane, I think she's a good option. If you do, it might be a few too many cooks in the kitchen. It might be too many enchanters and just not enough, like, horsepower. But she's excellent. If you have a tank or some kind of engage in the support role or in the jungle or whatever, the beefier, the better. It's going to add more value to your shields, more value to your Moonstone. Remember that healers, enchanters really want people that get a lot of armor, get a lot of magic resist, a lot of HP, so they can't be bursted down, and so they get more effective health out of the heals and shields. So if you have that type of comp, I think she can fit in really well. She's got good wave clear, excellent teamfight ultimate, and just really cheap itemization where she gets to kind of cheat the curve a little bit and come online faster to contest those dragons and scuttles. She's just going to be a lot faster at that than a lot of the other mid laners. So I still think she's going to be a pretty good option, but you got to be a little more careful with your composition if you're going to run with her. Kind of weak to assassins early. You got to be careful with that, but nevertheless pretty strong. And then Zed, I think he's going to be pretty good right now. Usually I'm not a big fan of AD champions in the middle just because I think that most of the top laners are AD. AD carries are obviously mostly going to be AD. And then even a lot of the popular junglers are either going to be AD or just kind of low damage tanks. So I think that having a heavy AP threat and forcing the enemy team to buy magic resist is usually a good idea. Because you don't want to over-index and just allow over-index on AD. What is it? Okay. Bye-bye. We'll play in a little bit. Are you waving bye-bye to Daddy? What is it? What do you want? You need to go potty or something? What? What is it? You want to come say hi? Hold on. There we go. You want to say hi, Roy? Can you wave hi to the camera? There she is. Roy says hi. She just got home from daycare, didn't you? Yeah.
And Mommy picked me up.
Mommy picked you up from daycare, didn't she? Oh, are you waving again? You waving to people?
Yeah.
Okay. But anyways, I think Zed is powerful enough if you're good on him to become an exception, right? And a lot of that is kind of like Fizz, where he has lots of outplay potential. He can dodge projectiles with his ultimate. He can, you know, zip back and forth with his various shadows. He's just really hard to track down. He has pretty good wave clear. And pretty good assassination potential. And he can get to that back line, right? So you can like zip in, you know, with the shadows, take out the AD carry, and then get back out pretty quickly. So some of the other divers and assassins, it can be a little bit easier to peel them. But Zed is extremely difficult if you're good on Zed. If you're really fast with those rotations and you hit everything and you get out quick, he's almost impossible to counter. So, that's why I have him in there. And they did nerf Zhonya's recently, which is very handy. What is it, Rory? What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to get something.
What are you trying to get? Oh, you want... Oh, you want a little bar? Okay, there you go. So they did nerf Zhonya's recently, so that does help, you know, that it costs them 100 extra gold to have to get that. Good job, Rory. I don't remember if they buffed any of his core items. I don't believe they did, but they have nerfed some of the other stuff over time. The Ionian buff is very nice for him, so he does have that. I think they buffed Prowler's Claw, but I don't think a lot of people get that on him. I think it's still just mostly Duskblade or Eclipse, but really high skill cap champion, but if you do snowball early, he can be strong, and I just have him up here as one of my only AD options just because of his mobility, just because of his access to the back line, where you can bypass a lot of tanks. What is it, Roy? You need a potty? You need a potty? Huh? Do you need a potty, Rory? Huh? It seems like you might need a potty. She's like holding her butt, walking around. Rory, you need to go potty? Rory, what are you doing? Oh, you see Daddy up there? See me on OBS? Okay, you want to use Daddy's bow? Okay, real quick. Sorry, she just got in from daycare. I was hoping I could get this done before she got in, but... Anyway, so yeah, I think he's going to be strong. Ari is another one. She almost always has a high win rate, so she doesn't get a lot of respect. Like, nobody talks about her. But she is mobile. She's very difficult to run down. She has like 3 flashes every minute, pretty much, that also do damage. And I think the new Everfrost changes could be really good if you can chain that together with her charm. CC someone for a long time and just make sure, you know, if you go in, land your charm, you know, hit your Q, dance around them, hit them with Everfrost, and it just kind of ensures you're going to hit everything on them. And if you hit everything, that's usually good enough to kill people. So low cooldowns, high mobility, potentially really good with some of the changes that are coming down the pike here. High win rate most of the time. Okay, here you go, Roy. Can you go watch it over there? So yeah, kind of weird, kind of a lower elo special, but she's just always got a good win rate. So I think you got to respect it. You got to throw it up there. It looks like people maybe aren't getting... Yeah. It has a good win rate. It looks like Leandri's might be a little bit stronger, but it's just something to throw out there. She was someone who used to get the old school GLP, so I don't know. Maybe it's just not good enough. Maybe you need the wave clear and the movement speed from Ludens, but I'm just throwing her up there just out of respect for her win rate and the fact that she is pretty versatile. Now, if the enemy has a lot of CC, she has very little defensive capabilities, and she can't go untargetable. So against something like a Malzahar, that can be pretty rough. Something like a TF can be pretty rough. So you got to be careful in some matchups, but she can still be pretty good. Okay. And then Echo is another one that I think is still going to be pretty good. Yeah, they have nerfed Proto Belt a little bit, and I assume he's still getting Proto instead of Mandate just because he really has high AP ratios, and that's what he wants. Yeah, so he's still going Proto. Same drill, just Proto, Sork Boots, Lich Bane, Electrocute. He has lots of dashes. He can stick to targets really well. He can escape, jump over walls, rotate. He has a really nice stun as well with his W. If you can land it in team fights, that's a really good combination with other CC champs like a Leona. You know, even like an Udyr or a Skarner or a Rammus, just something that can lock people down so that you land that stun, that 2-second stun, which is huge. And it gives you a really big shield. And of course, you basically have 2 health bars with your ultimate that also is like a nuke if you can play around it correctly. So, a lot of utility, lots of outplay potential, very good against other assassins. If he gets chain CC'd before he can ult, he can get blown up, so you have to be careful with that. If you're against something like a Rammus or a Skarner, Leona, or whatever, gotta be very careful how you're kind of calibrating what you're trying to do. I'm trying to see what's going on there. They're yelling about something. I think my wife's looking into it. But anyways, Katarina talked about earlier. She's getting a buff to some of her more popular builds. Please don't build Blade of the Ruined King. But definitely for the Nashor's build and Lichbane build, both of those are going to be pretty solid. And even Protobell is pretty good right now. So that's what I would probably go. It looks like a lot of people... I'm not sure exactly what the build paths are there. Even something like a Night Harvester can be pretty good. But if she snowballs early, she can be really good. She has built-in 60% Grievous on your ultimate, which is nice. You don't have to get Morellos. It's already there for you. So you get a lot of value out of that because there's still going to be a ton of Moonstones and Gore Drinkers and things like that running around. You do have the outplay potential with your Blinks. You just got to be careful against the CC. Again, if you're against the Leona or some of these mega tanks that are going to be very popular in the jungle, in my opinion, I think it's going to be Udyr, Skarner, Rammus, Nunu. Nunu can't really lock you down that easily, but the other 3 definitely can. So you got to be careful into that kind of stuff. Obviously going to be kind of rough into things like Galio, Twisted Fate, you know, stuff that has that lockdown. But if it's a favorable matchup, if you can get ahead, get some of those kills and resets, then you can do very well. So super high skill cap, but can dominate if you get ahead. Orianna is just a great control mage that's still going to be there. You see her all the time in pro. Her win rate in solo queue is never fantastic. She does require a few more items than a lot of other champs out there. But she just has so many good combinations. Right? You can combine her, you know, with, you know, Leona support or a Jarvan or just anything that wants to dive. And, you know, that ultimate can be supremely impactful. Pretty good beneficiary of Banshee's Veil. Nice defense with your shield, so it's kind of hard to assassinate you, especially if you go for Veil. Now, a lot of people are getting Archangels. I guess maybe she does need that mana. But anyways, just good utility all around. If you're not really sure who to play and you want to learn someone that's like pretty decent in most metas, but pretty tricky to play, you got to learn the ranges on her leash and things like that, then I think Orianna could still be a pretty good choice. Syndra, same kind of deal, where very good in pro, excellent long-range engage, pretty good beneficiary of the Banshees a patch ago or so. Not a ton going on in terms of like new stuff on this patch, but I think that she can still be pretty good if you play her correctly. Kind of weak against tanks, so you got to be careful with that one. Orianna, also not fantastic against tanks, but can be pretty good with tanks because you can give that extra movement speed to your Darius or your Garen or your Skarner or whatever and get them in there to engage. So that is very nice, but she's just not going to be able to crack through most of the time, like some of these mega tanks if they start running at her. And then Rumble's another one that I think gets disrespected a lot in the mid lane. This dude just does like a billion damage. He's got a 53% win rate right now, a very low play rate, and I think that the new item, or the buffed item, Cosmic, could actually be really huge on him. Now, it's probably going to be a low sample size if anyone's tried it at all. Yeah, like 6 people. It's got an 83% win rate. But this thing, I played a lot of Rumble in Season 2, and I'm here to tell you, like, he really, really likes these stats. Now, some people may argue about the cooldown reduction and just how useful is that on Rumble, because you have your heat mechanic, where if you go too hot, you know, you're going to overload and then you silence yourself and can't cast spells for a little while. And that does suck. But being able to get off 2 flamethrowers quickly is a very big deal. Especially because they increase the cooldown on his R. Yeah, so it goes down to 6. But yeah, you can almost permanently have this up. So instead of like using, you can just substitute out like one of the harpoons or something like that and just stay in the danger zone and then get off 2 flamethrowers in fights. And that's probably going to be enough to kill people. So he does have good synergy with Zanya's because you can Zanya's yourself while your flamethrower's spitting and the flamethrower keeps going. So there is a really good alternative, you know, buy there for him. But he's just great. He does a lot of wave clear. He is susceptible to all in, so if you are going to get turbo ganked over and over again, that can be kind of rough, but just good wave clear. Kind of has some nice tanky stats for a mage. He's got that scrap shield to help him out, and then his ultimate is just like so strong around like Baron pits, Dragon pits, or if you have anyone that can hold him still, you know, Jarvan ults, the usual stuff, right? Leona, Chain CC. All that stuff. He's just fantastic follow-up if you have Engage on your team that can hold people still. So I think he's really overlooked and can potentially be a really strong champ, especially if you want to try him out with...
Dad, I'm back.
Okay, good. If you want to try him out with Cosmic. And then Victor's another one who is getting played in Pro some. He was super strong earlier on in the season, and they nerfed some of his numbers. But I still think he can be a very good control mage if you're proficient on him. Not a lot has changed on this patch. It's still probably just going to be Ludens into Lichbane. I'm not 100% about his build and if he would like Cosmic or not. Does look like it's a pretty decent second option, but I know he really, really likes that Lichbane to combine with his Q. The movement speed is pretty nice. I guess you do get... I forgot that Lichbane does give you 10% now. I thought it was 5% movement speed, so that is actually pretty big. On a lot of these types of champs that can, really the melee champs that can, I guess not even melee, just anything that's gonna like that Sheen proc Lichbane, because 10% on a lot of champs is gonna be equivalent to about 33% movement speed, or 33 flat movement speed ish. A lot of mages have about 330, and Cosmic is gonna give you about 30 movement speed with the changes they made to it. So yeah, I'd say Lichbane's probably better on him. Just depends on how much you can spam your spells, I guess. But anyways, and that's going to be about it. I'll cover just a couple more here really quickly because I do want to try to see if we can finish this up before 50 minutes if possible. Annie's really good, especially in lower brackets. I know that Kamoy is a big fan of Annie. She just, for me, she's a little too one-dimensional. She's a close-range mage, and she has pretty much one spell that matters, and that's Tibbers. So if, like... It is good if they don't get Banshees. If they get Banshees, it just feels absolutely awful because your spells are so short range, it's hard to break the Banshees. I guess you can run up with just 3 stacks and then use like your Fireball to break the Banshees and then go for Tibbers, stun all in, but then you don't have your Fireball damage. Like, she's just very, very dependent on killing somebody all in one rotation because after that rotation, her usefulness falls off dramatically. So... kind of one-dimensional. They're just better, like, all-in, you know, type of champions, in my opinion, most of the time. But she is really good if people don't respect it early on. Cassiopeia can be very strong against some of these mages. She probably is someone who would really like Cosmic Drive as well. That I just thought about, because she's going to like that movement speed, but she doesn't like Lichbane as much. So we'll see if people actually get that on her or not. She does need the mana, so she's probably going to pick up Archangel's second most of the time. It does look like Everfrost might be a decent choice on her. There's very low sample size on that. But that would make sense. That would, you know, you could Everfrost them and see if they're facing you. And if they're facing you, then you can chain that together with your ult. So you kind of fish for their fake out with your Everfrost first. And then you could go for the ultimate if you manage to get them. So it doesn't use your ult unless it's actually going to matter. So that is kind of nice. And then the slow can help you kite out people a little bit better. So that is handy. Usually you do have to go for Archangel's second. But maybe like third or something, Cosmic Drive could be a pretty good third option. Obviously, you're going to like the movement speed. You're going to like the ability haste, all that stuff. So, we'll see. Excellent at cracking tanks. You just have to be very good on her. She's difficult to play. But she does put out some of the highest DPS in the game, so I think that is pretty nice. Okay, we'll go a little bit over 50. We'll see if we can keep it under an hour. I'll mention a few of these other ones really quick. Diana, decent melee champ. Can have pretty high burst. I don't think a lot's going to change with her. It's still going to be just Protobelt Lichbane. Can be kind of tough into some of these, top tier champs. Like I imagine Galio's a tough cover. It's going to be difficult to get on Anivia. I just personally don't like her a lot near the top just because she is so all in. She's very unsafe. If we are in the turbo gank meta, she's just going to die to every gank. A lot of times if she doesn't have flash, so just a little too dangerous for my taste. She has no self-peel, so that's kind of rough. Heimerdinger, I think, can be pretty good. Sort of like what I was talking about with Anivia earlier. It's more important than ever to control these dragons and Rift Heralds and Barons. So much of it is about controlling the river. And he's excellent in those tight choke point areas, right? Where you can just drop your turbo cannon and it just deletes people. It's more likely you're going to hit a lot of people with your electric grenade. Just all of your other towers are just wailing away on people. So he's very good if he gets to set up his little zone of control and protect a specific area. Where he's worse is when he has to skirmish and rotate from place to place and try to cover side lanes. And that's when he gets opened up to flanks and he can get blown up. But if he gets to sit there and just protect an area and he's got his little tower set up, his little zone of control, he's very difficult to push off of that. So I think that can be very good. I would rather probably have Anivia for that type of thing. I just think her damage numbers are higher. She's got a little bit more range. I mean, his rockets do have range. Maybe that's not the word I'm looking for. But, I just would probably rather prefer Anivia for that type of thing. But Dinger can be very good if you're good on him at the same type of stuff that Anivia is pretty much. Lisandra, pretty good. It's just her numbers are a bit low, I think, on the damage after they've nerfed her so many times. She does have excellent engage, by being able to go in with her claw and then ult herself, which is good against assassins as well. Or even just if you just want to ult and lock down the other person, that's nice. I would just probably rather have Malzahar for, a utility kind of mid-range mage, just because Malzahar's ult lasts longer, and it's a suppression. They can get out of Lisandra with a cleanse, which is kind of annoying. But she's okay, if you want that type of thing. Lux is another one who's alright. Long range, poke, pretty good engage from a distance, just very vulnerable to ganks and flanks if they flash your Q or just able to sidestep it. And there's a lot of high mobility stuff out there, from Rammus to Udyr to Skarner. A lot of these things are just going to, walk right around your Q if it's a competent player. So she's okay. I would just, if you want to go for the poke thing, I'd probably rather just go for Zoe. I think she brings a little bit more to the table, has more one-shot potential. I don't know. Lux does. Your ult is up a lot, and if you do hit your Q, they're going to die, probably. So personally, I'd just rather play Zoe if you're good on him, although I think Lux is going to be a little bit easier to play. And then Malphite is kind of troll in the mid lane, but you know what? He has a really powerful ult. He can sustain through some damage, so if you're facing like an AD mid, I think he's a decent option, because you can just get some early armor, get some plated steel caps, and just play to survive if you're against like a Zed or a Talon or something. I mean, I don't know how they ever kill you unless you really screw up. And then of course you just have your ult, right? So if your team already has a ton of damage and you just need to play safe and not die against an AD champion middle, and you just want to be useful with an ult, I think that could be a pretty good choice. Some people are playing stuff like Tristana mid now. That could be a decent option. I didn't throw that up here, actually. Yeah, I did. I threw it down here. I think it's a little gimmicky. I don't know. It has a really low win rate in Pro and in solo queue. It's well under 50%, bordering on 40%. So I know people have been experimenting with it, but it just doesn't seem as great to me. And then who are some of the other notable ones? Like we said, Kassadin was actually looking pretty decent win rate wise, although once again low sample size. But maybe it's just the is he using Everfrost? I have seen several Kassadins using Everfrost. Yeah, it looks like Luden's is a higher win rate, but he would definitely be someone because he doesn't have any CC. So being able to jump in with your R, get a full rotation on him, Everfrost him, auto attack him a couple of times, that might let you be able to, get one more rotation off on him. Or maybe you can even just RN, Everfrost him, hit them with your rotation, and then walk out while they're frozen. I'm not really sure how that trading pattern would go, but that is one more tool to add to your toolkit as far as CC goes. So, anyways, that seems like a pretty good, pretty interesting option there. Swain's okay. There's just a lot of healing debuffs out there right now. Pike, I don't like as much, but I have seen him go off. He has like no wave clear. He's almost completely dependent on roaming and getting kills that way, but it can work well. I have seen Ryze do really well. I'd be curious to see if Ryze actually wants to try out that new Everfrost as well to chain together with his W. Could be kind of decent. He likes the movement speed too, so maybe he would like Cosmic. He kind of has to get Archangels though, so I'm not really sure where you would fit some of those things into his build. His win rate's really low, but he does have nice wave clear. He can do a lot of damage, especially to tanks. So keep that in mind. It does look like Everfrost is one of the least bad options out there, although they're all negative win rate. He just requires a lot of items, and he's still kind of that old guard that needs like 2 mana items early on. So I hope they rework him again to maybe make him not as mana dependent. Or I kind of liked it when he could go tank Ryze with like Frozen Heart when like his main scaling was mana and not AP. I mean, that could get toxic again, but I thought that was at least unique. It was like a tanky sustained damage mage. Silas, I think, can be a good counter if they have really powerful ultimates. Difficult to play, but can work. Talon just got a buff. Remains to be seen how strong that'll be. I'd rather play Zed most of the time. I think he has easier access to the back line. There's not as much notice, and I think he can get out a lot easier after he gets the kill. But Talon, if you're really good on him, he can definitely work. Yone and Yasuo, very dangerous champions, but if you're good on them, they can work really well. The Gale Force has kind of given them even more outplay potential if you want to go for that option, but still really risky picks. Azir is very strong right now. He's being played a lot in Pro. He's just extremely difficult to play right now. I think a lot of people are going Liandry's on him just because it increases the damage on your soldiers because they count as magic damage, and it does lower the magic resist of your target by, I think, 15%. So you see Azir all the time if you watch my stream. Jason is pretty much an Azir one-trick. There are a lot of different options you can go on him, but very good sustained damage versus tanks. Pretty good ultimate. You can Shreem a shuffle and push them back into your team, which can be, very impactful. So has a lot of potential out there, but difficult to play. Brand, lots of damage, too vulnerable for my taste. Irelia, really high skill cap, kind of like Yone and Yasuo. I think she's a lot better in top lane than mid lane, but if you're really good on her, she can work. Gragas, I don't know exactly. He just has a low win rate middle. He does have a nice kit, but I think something about the numbers are just off on the AP build. The tank build, when he's like super tanky top lane, has been finding some success in Pro, but still not sure about it. LeBlanc would be interesting if she wants to go for the Frost. That could actually be pretty nice for making sure that you land your chains. I don't know if she's going to do it or not. I did see a really good LeBlanc last night. I think it was just Ludens. It's almost always just Ludens because it has the wave clear on it. But Everfrost does have a pretty decent play rate, so maybe. Yeah, high skill cap. Takes a little while to get going. I don't like Karma and Lulu in the mid. I know some people have tried those out. I would just, if you want to play a utility mid laner, I would play Seraphine. Otherwise, I just think your team is going to lack too much firepower if you do that. Same thing with Morgana. Same thing with Zillion. I just don't think they have enough firepower in solo queue. If you're duoed with a hyper scaling, like Master Yi friend in the jungle or something like that, maybe you could consider that. But in general, I don't think it's that great. I think that's pretty much it for everything I wanted to mention. Akali is just nerfed too much. I think she's not that great in mid unless you're a one-trick and just like challenger god mode on her. You see Corki sometimes in Pro. I think Corki's just one of the worst champs in the game right now. I'm not sure why people are goofing around with him in Pro. Irelia and Soul doesn't feel great, even for one tricks right now. But anyways, that's going to be about it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed this. Be sure to like and subscribe if you did. Check out the rest of the tier list. Come check out the stream. Starts around midnight Eastern Standard Time every night. Usually goes till 3 or 4 a.m. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day.